Guys, today I want to talk about the Ledger Recover service, and it's to do with the firmware update 2.2.1. And in this firmware update, they are going to have a service called Ledger Recover, and this service is basically a service that they are adding to this firmware whereby people can back up and recover their secret passphrase, and I'm going to go more into it as to why this new feature, this new addition in the firmware, is causing a lot of backlash within the community. And me personally, myself, I'm actually extremely disappointed with this new feature, and I'm not really happy, to be honest, but it is what it is. So, anyways, the Ledger Recover service is a protect your seed phrase with Ledger Recover. Recover your keys using your identity. So the idea is basically with Ledger Recover, it's for people that don't know how to look after their 24-word passphrase. And I don't know how can people be that inept not to be able to write down 24 words and write it down properly. Double check with the device. When you set up your device, you have to do it twice anyway, so you have to double check that you've written your 24-word passphrase properly, and then just protect it. It's difficult for some people out there. So there's a Ledger Recover service where you'll never get locked out of your wallet. The Ledger Recover lets you create an encrypted backup for your secret recovery phrase that only you can access anytime, anywhere. This is how it works. It basically works by you having to do your KYC, so you confirm your identity with maybe a passport picture or whatever. And it's an opt-in service, by the way. So you opt into Ledger Recover. It's a paid opt-in service. I think it's like $10 a month. The purpose of this service is that they are going to back up your passphrase and private keys for you, and it's going to be connected to your identity. So you do your KYC, and what happens during the setup, I suppose, your 24-word passphrase is copied, duplicated, and then they shard it into three segments, into three parts. So they fragment it into three parts, and this all happens within the device itself, and then they encrypt it, and then they send those backups to three independent entities. So each of the encrypted fragments is secured independently by Ledger, CoinCover, and a third provider. So they all have a copy of your backup keys. And if anything happens to your Ledger, or you can't remember your passphrase, or you lose your keys, then if you've opted into this service, the idea is that these entities will give you back your keys. You may have to prove your identity again to recover your keys, your passphrase, but then so long as you get 2 copies out of the 3, you would be able to access your crypto again. New people in the space may be thinking, this is amazing. However, people that are true crypto enthusiasts and they understand not your keys, not your coins, and they really appreciate the concept of self-custody. This is not self-custodying your crypto when you sign up to this service and they send your keys out to 3 different parties. This is against opposite of self-custody. Self-custody is when you're doing it yourself. You're protecting your own keys. You are your own bank. Now, people with that mindset, they're going to look at this and they are going to say to themselves, this is not what I signed up for when I purchased Ledger. And as I go on, it would make more sense as to what the big problem is, because I'm seeing a lot of people are actually missing the point within the community. They're saying, oh, the Ledger Recover service is an opt-in service. Oh, the Ledger Recover service is an optional service, which are the same things the team is saying to people. The Ledger team is basically saying it's an opt-in service. You can choose whether you want to opt into the service. Okay, however, that's besides the point. And I'm going to explain what the point actually is, why this is an issue for your Ledger hardware wallet to be able to do this. Anyways, what if someone gets access to my wallet using Ledger Recover? So Ledger Recover has an insurance or compensation of up to $50,000. So you pay about $10 a month for the service. Let's just say someone managed to get access to your coins using Ledger Recover as a result of falsifying your KYC, or they duped the system and they managed to steal your tokens as a result of that, then you can get compensated up to $50,000. So if you had a portfolio worth over 50,000, maybe you had $100,000 worth of crypto, then they would only cover you for half. If you were a millionaire from crypto, then you're only going to get covered for $50,000 with this service. And that's something you should know if you're interested in using Ledger Recover anyways. However, so what's the problem? What's the big deal? Now, the big deal is we're going to look at Ledger. We're going to look at the way Ledger is supposed to protect your private keys. What is Ledger? Secure crypto self-custody. Now, all throughout Ledger, it tells you Ledger devices generate your private keys in a completely offline environment and keep them there always. So the whole idea is that Ledger is supposed to protect your keys within the SE chip of the device, the secure element military grade chip, as they have sold it to us. I mean, before I bought a Ledger, I made sure I did my research as to what a Ledger is, and your keys are supposed to be within this SE chip of the device, and it's supposed to stay there. It's an offline environment, and it's supposed to remain there. And that's what's supposed to protect your keys, because it's a military grade chip used in passports, used in your debit cards, and so on, to protect data and information. And as they tell you on the site, that the private keys is in this environment offline, that's where it stays always. So how does your keys manage to leave this environment, whether it's encrypted or not, is besides the point, and get sent online? Because how is it going to get sent to 3 different entities to hold your keys for you? That means they leave an offline environment, they go into an online environment to be sent. And again, regardless of whether your keys are encrypted during the process, this is not supposed to happen. The secure element and hardware wallets explained. Article, it goes on. While Ledger is using a dual chip system with an MCU as well, the important part is that your private keys remains inside the secure element. To process a transaction, the secure element lets you use the private key without allowing it to leave the chip. So the private key is not supposed to leave the secure element chip. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is what they've been telling us from day one. So let's compare the 3 chips for their use in hardware wallets. Which chip is best and why? And here is the Ledger, here's the Trezor, and here's a code card. Now, one of the perks of the Ledger is that the private keys always remain within the secure element. So over and over again on their website, they are telling you that your private keys never leaves the secure element. And that's the whole idea, was supposed to make it secure. The secure element chip, how it keeps your Ledger secure. Ledger devices use the secure element chip to generate and store private keys for your crypto assets. Thanks to the mechanics of the secure element, this is where your private keys are stored. These will not leave your device. So I don't know if you can figure out by now, but with Ledger Recover, your keys leaves the secure element. So this is a massive contradiction. Ledger has been telling everyone for years that the keys never leaves the secure element, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they come up with this new firmware update with this new service called Ledger Recover, and they're selling it to people like it's the best thing since sliced bread. How it's going to make your life easier, you're not going to lose your keys, it would help your grandmother out, and so on and so forth. Everyone seems to be okay with, oh, it's an opt-in service, oh, it's optional. Besides the point, this service means your keys are leaving the secure element, whereby Ledger has told us over and over again that your keys will never leave your device. So our custom operating system bolus. So private data, such as your private keys, will be protected and never leave the device due to the combination of BOLOS, that's the operating system that's used on the Ledger, and the secure element. So again, private keys stay on the secure element and they never leave the device. This is what they've been telling us for years, until recently. In fact, they tell us more explicitly here. Someone asked, how can you prove to us, the customers, that the private keys on the device are not leakable via a firmware update, in case someone at the company wants this? Thanks. In November 15, 2022. Hi, your private keys never leave the secure element chip, which has never been hacked. The secure element is third-party certified and is the same technology as used in passports and credit cards. A firmware update cannot extract the private keys from the secure element. This is by Ledger Support on Twitter. Explicitly says, a firmware update cannot extract the private keys from the secure element. However, with this new ledger recover service, the firmware update is basically extracting the private keys from your secure element. This is the issue. Regardless whether you opt in, regardless whether it's optional, this should not be possible. The firmware should not be able to do this. So why is it able to do this? Why has Ledger been lying to us basically all this time, saying that your keys always stay on the secure element chip of the device? However, that's not been the case. They've always had the ability to basically extract your keys from your device just from a firmware update, and they've denied it. The point of secure hardware is that you can limit the trust extended to the people operating that hardware, because it is impossible to extract key material from the secure element. So he gets it. So here you have Ledger basically contradicting themselves. In one tweet in November 2022, they say that the firmware update cannot extract the private keys from the secure element, and then recently they say, technically speaking, it is and always has been possible to write firmware that facilitates key extraction. You have always trusted Ledger not to deploy such firmware, whether you knew it or not. So basically, it speaks for itself. They have always been able to extract your keys with firmware, and we basically trust them not to deploy such firmware. Then we have Charles, who works for Ledger, and he goes on to say, using a wallet requires a minimal amount of trust. If your hypothesis is that your wallet provider is the attacker, you are doomed. So just further elaborating that you have to trust Ledger. If you think they would be the people to attack your wallet, then you're basically screwed, because there's an element of trust involved, and this is what they can potentially do to your ledger. The wallet provider can potentially do to your wallet. Now, if the wallet, I assume he means provider, wants to implement a backdoor, there are many ways to do it. In the random number generation, in the cryptographic library, in the hardware itself, it's even possible to create signatures so that the private key can be retrieved only by monitoring the blockchain. So he's just further elaborating that there's many ways for a wallet provider to attack your wallet. So you really have to trust that they won't do such things. And also it doesn't make sense for a wallet provider not to do such things, as it would basically destroy their business. And there's no incentive really for them to attack your wallet. So here Charles says in this thread, your private keys never leaves the hardware wallet. Whenever they are used, your consent is requested. And then in the next tweet, in the thread, he goes on to say, you want to use Ledger Recover, your seed will be split into 3 shards and encrypted before being stored in shards backup providers. So in one tweet, he basically says your keys never leave your wallet. And then in the next tweet, he says it basically does leave your wallet. You can't have it both ways. Does it stay in your wallet, or does it leave your wallet being sent to backup providers? And what I've discovered is that they are basically using word games. They're playing with words, and I'm going to explain what they mean or what they're doing. But really and truly, it's all the same thing, whether it's your seed phrase, your keys, whatever. So long as whatever leaves your wallet has the ability to extract your seed, then no matter what it is, it's the same thing. But they're playing word games. So here in another tweet recently, it's like Ledger's trying to do damage control. By using Ledger Recover, your 24-word recovery phrase is still never leaving your device. So it's semantics here, yeah? So the pre-BIP39 seed is split into 3 encrypted fragments and then transmitted via a secure backend to 3 trusted providers. So in 2 sentences here, in one sentence they say that your 24-word recovery phrase never leaves your device, but in another sentence, the Ledger support staff is saying the pre-BIP39 seed is what leaves your device. But the funny thing is here is that the pre-BIP39 seed is basically what could be used to basically generate your 24-word recovery phrase. Even though what leaves your Ledger device may not be literally be the 24 words, okay, it's like I said, they're playing with semantics, her language. Okay, it may not be the 24 words which leaves your device, but it's the pre-BIP39 seed. However, it's the same thing, because the Ledger, your 24 words can basically, whoever has it can lead to your crypto assets being stolen. And your pre-BIP39 seed phrase also could be used to generate your 24 words, which could also lead to your crypto being stolen. They both can lead to your crypto being stolen. So basically, your keys leave your device, and if it gets into the wrong hands, it can be stolen. They say that they encrypt it and it's sent to 3 trusted providers, but they got to stop telling people that your seed doesn't leave your device because they're playing with, or it's not your 24-word key phrase, rather it's your BIP39, pre-BIP39 seed that leaves. It's the same thing. This is completely optional. Then they're going to say that the service is optional and does not happen automatically. In other words, you'd have to opt into the service, you'd have to consent with your device itself on your ledger, like you're signing a transaction, and confirm that you want them to shard your keys, you want them to duplicate it, and you want them to transmit it out to the trusted providers once you opted into Ledger Recover. So here as well, just to quickly tell you what the pre-BIP39 is, the pre-BIP39 version of your private key might refer to the initial randomness or entropy that used to generate the mnemonic phrase, which is then used to derive the private keys. So the pre-BIP39 version is basically, it could be whatever it is. I'm not sure if it's random numbers or digits or a mixture of the two, but whatever this is, okay, it's what is used to generate your 24 keywords once you put it through the BIP39 format or standard. So this random numbers, okay, can be put through the BIP39 standard, and it's used to then put it into a format that's a readable form, and which is a 24 words. So this is what leaves your device. So they're saying that your 24-word keys doesn't leave your device. However, the precursor that can be used to generate your 24-word keys, the pre-BIP39, is what leaves your device. It's practically the same thing, because with the pre-BIP39, somebody could use it if it was to get into the hands of the wrong person, and they could use it to generate your 24-word keys phrase. And Charles says here, how does it apply to a hardware wallet? When you set up your hardware wallet, the hardware wallet, in Ledger's case, its secure element chip, which uses hardware designed for security and randomness, randomly generates a very large number. It's a number, not letters. And this is the 256 bits. And this is the pre-BIP39 basically. And what happens next in Ledger is that this number is put into a human readable form, which is a 24 words using BIP39 standard. And then that creates your secret recovery phrase. And then they say this is what you write down and should never share with anyone, including Ledger. Ledger does not have access to it, including if you use Ledger Recover. So they're saying Ledger Recover does not have access to your secret recovery phrase, your 24 words. However, what Ledger Recover does have access to is your pre-BIP39, and this is basically this random number that is generated, which is 256 bits, and that's what Ledger Recover has access to. That is what Ledger Recover sends out and encrypts. So like most people, I am also not happy with this firmware update, whereby there is even an option for my keys to be extracted regardless of whether it is an opt-in service or not. I was always under the delusion that this was not even possible, with how Ledger falsely advertised that your keys, seed phrase, or whatever you want to call it, was not able to leave the SC chip of the device at any cost. To now find out that they can is a shock, and it does not make me feel any better that it is an optional or an opt-in service. I would rather not have it built into the official firmware regardless. However, it is what it is, so what now? What am I going to do? I know some people are rushing into new hardware wallets to move their assets over from Ledger, but me personally, I am not going to do that. At the end of the day, Ledger is still one of the best hardware wallets on the market, very convenient to use, and probably still has the best security team in the industry. As far as I know, like some other hardware wallets out there, ledgers have not been hacked by someone extracting the private keys from the device. All hacks in relation to ledgers have been user mistakes and users compromising their private keys, which led to their crypto being stolen. The reality is, Ledger have always had the ability to extract our private keys from our SC chip via firmware. Now they are just deciding to use that feature, a distasteful feature I must add, for their recovery service. And the chances are manufacturers of other hardware wallets probably can do the same thing with their firmware too. So if you leave Ledger to rush into another hardware wallet, that hardware wallet provider with their firmware could probably do the exact same thing that Ledger could do as well. So what's the point basically? So my Ledger is still as safe as my private keys are, because the reality is, if Ledger had not revealed this, many of us would not have been aware or any wiser. So there's no need to panic or fear our assets are not safe because of this new Ledger protection feature. Now, currently, I'm not going to rush into upgrading the firmware either on my Ledger device to firmware version 2.2.1, as I feel no need to. I would let everyone else do it to test the waters first before I upgrade my firmware. However, with that being said, I don't think upgrading your firmware, if you have already, will put your keys at risk either. I think it's safe to do, and your keys would be fine. Just don't opt into the recovery service if you don't want them to be extracted from your device and sent to third parties. And I do believe Ledger, when they say the Ledger recovery service or recover service is an opt-in service. Otherwise, if you don't opt in, nothing happens and your keys remain on the SE chip still. I do believe them when they say that, and the reason why I believe them is because they have no incentive to lie. If they released a firmware that extracted people's keys without us consenting, then there would be massive, major hacks in the millions, because millions of ledgers have been sold around the world. Their business would be over. There would be class action lawsuits against them, the company and individuals, and they would be literally finished. Maybe even prison sentences, who knows. So I basically trust that they won't release malicious firmware to make vulnerable our keys from the SE chip of all their customers, because it makes no logical sense whatsoever for Ledger, the company, to do that. And yes, if using Ledger, you basically have to trust them. And from what it seems, that goes for any hardware wallet out there. Whatever hardware wallet you're using, you basically have to trust the manufacturers of the hardware wallet, that they have the best interest of their customers, that they want to build a product in the market that's going to excel in terms of its security, and they are not going to deliberately introduce anything into their product that's going to be malicious and going to destroy them and their reputation and their business. So there is a trust element involved. If you're going to use Ledger, you basically have to trust them not to expose your keys from malicious firmware updates, and that goes across any hardware wallet that's being manufactured out there. Unless you're building it yourself, all of it yourself, every aspect of it yourself, whereby you could say it's a trustless device, fine. But if you're not doing that and you're buying a hardware wallet from any manufacturer, you're going to have to trust them. And that has always been the case, it seems, but we were just unaware until now. Anyways, that's how it is. So my advice moving forward to people that own ledgers is to treat ledger firmware updates like you would a new smart contract. If you blind sign a potential malicious smart contract with your ledger, it can also empty your wallet beyond the amount of tokens you designated to send to that contract. So you have to be careful with ledgers when you're signing contracts in case they are malicious. So to mitigate this is you only sign contracts that you know are from reputable sources and are safe after doing some due diligence on the contract you are dealing with, and so on. And that is how we should treat ledger firmware updates going forward. I won't be too hasty to just update my device whenever a new firmware is out. Rather, I would let the market test it out and only do so if needed out of necessity, like a security upgrade or patch. Always make sure you read about the update and what it entails beforehand, before just upgrading your firmware, because they should outline what the upgrade entails. So read about it beforehand so you know what you're actually agreeing to when you upgrade your ledger and its firmware, and what changes are going to be made. So make sure you always do that, because at the end of the day, you have to also consent to installing these firmwares on your device itself. And it's the same concept for if you do this opt-in service with Ledger Recover to have your keys backed up, duplicated and fragmented and sent out. You have to confirm it on the device itself. You have to approve it. Also, I strongly suggest to add a 25th word passphrase for that little extra layer of security, as the Ledger Recover extraction only extracts your 24-word passphrase according to Ledger and not the 25th word if you created one. If you don't know how to create a 25th word, I've done a video on this. Check out my Ledger playlist and you would find the video on how to create a 25th word passphrase. That is literally the best we can do practically as well for extra security. Protect your private keys and trust Ledger not to release firmware designed to extract them from the SE chip without our knowledge, which I think they would never do anyways, as it would ruin them. So I am sure they have extreme measures of security in place to ensure no malicious firmware makes it onto our devices from them. Lastly, if you are someone that feels the Ledger recovery service is good for you and you want to try it out, then be aware it only covers you up to $50,000 worth of assets. If something goes wrong and you end up losing them from some KYC mishap, you're only covered up to $50,000, nothing more. Because doing KYC is another potential attack vector and risk in and of itself, where someone can fool the system, the identity verification system, and end up getting access to your crypto through the KYC process on another ledger. That's possible. So there are additional attack vectors if you are going to opt into Ledger Live, not Ledger Live, Ledger Recovery. So a 25th word passphrase can help protect you from that if you do use the service, but chances are if you are not capable of protecting your 24-word passphrase by yourself and writing it down and protecting it, and you need to rely on a recover service, then the whole concept of a 25th word passphrase and protecting it may be a bit too advanced for you, because it seems like this Ledger Recover service is for people that are just incompetent when it comes to protecting their keys, writing it down, and self-custodying their own crypto. So they've created this service for those kinds of people to make it very easy for them. And if you're that sort of person, then practically creating a 25th word and protecting it may be advanced for you. It is what it is. So personally, I won't touch the Ledger Recover service because it is simple. Not your keys, not your coins, and I do not want any piece of my pre-BIP39, my seed phrase, fragmented. I don't care if it's been encrypted or not, but I don't want any piece to leave the SE chip at all, to be sent to custodians, 3 different custodians out there. No, I want my seed phrase to remain within the SE chip of the device and to not be extracted from it at all in any form whatsoever. Not your keys, not your coins. It's that simple. And before I forget, if you have a Ledger Nano S, then this Ledger Recovery Update firmware won't be available to you. It's only available to Ledger Nano X users and S Plus holders, just those 2 products. But if you have the Nano S only, then you don't have to worry about this because this feature won't be for those hardware wallets. With that being said, thank you for watching, and just protect your private keys and you should be fine. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so as to not miss my next video.